Welcome to 39-Minute Conversations. Please wait for your host to begin this meeting. Your meeting is now being recorded.
Okay, can you see me? Can you hear me?
Hey, what up?
Hey man, how's it going?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm good. It's good to see you. Thank you for doing this.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me.
Of course. I'm very excited to talk to you and get into it. But the first thing I do have to do, I apologize, is get through a quick ad read. So hope you don't mind if you just sit there for a sec, take that, and I appreciate that. Folks, this is still a pretty new show, still a pretty small show. I started this thing in November. It's just now the end of February. A long way to say that I'm still waiting for some real sponsors. Your Simply Safes, your Athletic Greenses, your Bombay, which is, of course, the plural for Bombas, all the classics that you hear on every other podcast. But until those real sponsors come calling and the ad revenue starts rolling in, I want to use this section to highlight things that I currently enjoy, bring some attention to the little guy who needs some word of mouth, and that's why today's sponsor is the little engine that could, Apple TV. This scrappy little company, Apple, I think I'm saying that right, has been releasing some of the best shows and movies out there recently. Ted Lasso, obviously. Mythic Quest, I'm a huge fan. For All Mankind, Physical, Slow Horses, lots of great stuff. And their newest show is Shrinking, and so far, I'm really digging it. From producer Bill Lawrence, who created Scrubs, which is one of my all-time favorites, and co-created Ted Lasso, comes a sweet, sad little comedy about a therapist dealing with the death of his wife and trying to shake his clients out of their issues with some pretty extreme treatment, starring Jason Segel, Jessica Williams, Krista Miller, and Harrison Ford. Shrinking is very funny, very touching, leaves you feeling better than when you started it. What else do you want in a sitcom? So help the little guy out. Subscribe to Apple TV and enjoy Shrinking and all the other great shows and movies that they've got going on right now. Then we pause, and then, hello, I'm Brian T. Arnold, and this is 39-Minute Conversations, a podcast about reconnecting with old friends and making new ones, but I've only got 39 minutes to do it because I will not be paying for Zoom Pro. My guest today was a staff writer on Brooklyn Nine-Nine. Recently, his comedy pilot spec script, Cul-de-sac, won top comedy in the Launchpad pilot competition. He also teaches pilot writing and directs a sketch team at the Upright Citizens Brigade Theater. Please welcome Jeff Topolski.
Hey, thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me to be here. I really appreciate it.
I appreciate it. I appreciate you saying yes. I appreciate you coming on.
Mm-hmm.
One thing that I think is kind of weird and kind of funny is that we were doing improv and sketch at basically the same time. We know all the same people.
Yeah.
We ran in the same circles back when I ran in circles and did things.
Same,
we don't know each other that well. Like
I know.
It's weird.
It's like I feel like we have a following from afar type relationship.
Mm-hmm. I think that's true. Yeah. You always go ahead.
I was gonna say I have a really interesting story that you may not know.
Okay.
So, or maybe we talked about this. Maybe we didn't. Were you in did one of your improv classes? Maybe your 101 was it with Drew DeFonso Marks, or was that a different? Or no?
No, I don't think I ever had Drew as a teacher. I think I had him as a coach a few times.
There was something, I feel like maybe it wasn't Drew's class, but for some reason, I think I saw a grad show and you were in the grad show. And I remember being like, that guy's really funny. And I feel like I told someone, I was like, that guy's, he's got it. That was a long time ago.
Well, I appreciate that. I don't think I'm as funny as I was back then. It's nice to hear someone affiliated with UCB tell me I'm funny. That doesn't happen to me very often. But yeah, you always struck me as someone who's very funny. I've heard nothing but good things about you, but just somehow we always kind of missed each other for the most part. So I'm excited to actually get to know you and talk to you. I'm excited, genuinely.
Yeah, same. Definitely.
I want to start where I usually start these episodes. This podcast for me was kind of born from the pandemic, the result of me becoming more of a shut-in and needing something not in a theater anymore, something creative and fun and social to do from the comfort and safety of my home. So what have these last 3 years or so been like on your end? What have you learned about yourself? What did you do to stay sane? How has life been for Jeff Topolski?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I feel like a thing I learned about myself, for either positive, or maybe this is a negative. I feel like I learned how much I do kind of like crave some sort of engagement of some kind. I feel like I found myself posting the things on Instagram with like a poll or a fun like weird bitch, because I'm like, I want people to interact with this so I can have something like that. Also my fiance and I got a dog during the pandemic, and that's been the best. Her name is Bailey. This is kind of what she looks like, but it's not a real photo, as you can tell,
Sure.
but that's kind of what she looks like. And that's been amazing. I learned a lot about being a dog parent. I think a funny thing is about being a dog parent is that my fiance, she kind of thought when we were getting a dog, she's like, okay, well, are you going to be like able to, give, like, if you have to punish the dog, or we have to be serious, are you gonna be able to do that? And I was like, I think so. Yeah. But then the funny thing is I'm the one who's more willing to do that, and she's like very not willing to do that.
Interesting.
I'm like, I'll be like, she's like barking when she's supposed to. I'll be like, hey, no. And then she'll be like, oh, it's okay. So yeah.
So it feels like, was she testing? Is this sort of that classic, like, let's see how we do with the dog. Let's see what our parenting styles are like.
I mean,
that's in our
kind of how I
future.
think it came up in the beginning. Was it was like, when we eventually have kids, it's like, will I be able to? Will I always be like, oh, I want to be the cool dad, or will I be willing to like be stern? And then like with the dog, we realized like, oh no, I can do it if I need to, but like, can you do that? We'll see, obviously having a kid will be very different, but also
debatable.
yeah. And then I said my fiance, but we got engaged during the pandemic too, so that was a big life event. So definitely there were some. Thank you very much. There were definitely some things cooking, some things happening, but yeah. And I started teaching that class during the pandemic too, because it was like wanting to kind of keep, the writer's room I was in wrapped during the pandemic too, so it was kind of trying to keep that creative juices flowing in a different way. So yeah,
I definitely want to get into that, but I want to go back to the beginning. I want to get to know the Jeff Topolski story.
Yes,
you grew up in Fort Collins, Colorado, which was ranked the #1 place to live by Money Magazine in 2006.
Yes.
Does Fort Collins live up to that hype? Was it the best place to live in America
in 2006? Yes. No, all the time. I think I really, it's funny because I grew up there, and I think because growing up there, I wanted always to go to LA and work in film and TV. I always kind of wanted to like get out, and I was always like itching to leave. And then now every time I go back, I'm always like, oh my gosh, that's just like the best city. I wish I could just live here all the time. Yeah, it's really nice. It's like Colorado State University is there, so it's kind of like a college town vibe in certain parts of it. And yeah, it's just a really great, really nice place. There's like some, there's a nice mountain view. There's very, the nature. A lot of people like on bikes, a lot of outdoorsy people. It's a nice, I really loved being in Fort Collins.
You said like, so growing up, you already knew that you wanted to like, at what point did you know that you were like, I'm going to be a writer, I'm going to be in comedy? Like, when did that start for you?
I guess it wasn't like when I was like a little kid, but it was in like high school. I kind of had figured that out. Like early in high school, I think I knew that that's when I first got into watching shows and being like, I for some reason I like didn't ever watch a lot of TV shows, and I didn't realize like that they could be really funny. And then I started watching, it was actually like The Office. Like I started watching The Office, and then I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize this. I didn't know what it was. And I was like, this is so different than I thought it was. And I started watching Arrested Development, and then also kind of clicked for me. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is great. And then I kind of got into writing a little bit. I was doing speech and debate. I don't know if you did speech and debate, no speech and debate.
I know it, but I never got into it. I don't know if my school even had that, honestly.
Yeah. So they have an event in speech and debate there's like the debate stuff, which I didn't do. And then they have interp events, which are kind of like performance-y and acting, and you like perform like a short 10-minute piece of some kind of play or something. And I started doing that. And then after the first year doing that, I was like, oh, I kind of want to write my own version of this, like that. So I like wrote something, and you had to like get it published to perform it. So there's like website that you can get stuff published on, and I would like publish it under a fake name so I could perform it. And then I just like kept writing more things, and then kind of realized like I could like combine that interest of mine with how much I was recently just getting into like TV comedy and kind of try to pursue that.
So none of the teachers or advisor or anything knew that like this was stuff that you had written? Like you were did you keep that secret the whole time, or did you kind of like on the side be like, this is my stuff?
Yeah, my coaches knew, and they really encouraged it, and they were like, this is good. The vibe was that there were like some people who thought it was against the thesis of being interpretation, because it's like how you interpret a work, but it's like, what if it's your own work? So there were some people who never knew. Some people knew and like frowned upon it, but it's it was encouraged from my team. And then the cool thing actually was I originally only wrote these things so then I could perform them. But then the thing about publishing it through this like website was that then it's on their website, and then I ended up running into people at other tournaments doing pieces that I wrote stuff. And so I ran into someone at like a tournament in Boston who was like doing a thing that I had written, and it was really cool to kind of be like, oh, there's more. That was another kind of moment where it was like, oh, the writing can be more than just a thing like for me. It can be, it can kind of go out there.
Yeah, how did that feel? Like, it sounds like at least originally this was all just like, oh, I'm just gonna do something for me to do, but then to know somebody else read your thing, liked your thing, interprets your thing, like that had to be like a boost of confidence, a boost of I maybe I know what I'm doing and maybe I can keep doing this. Like, how did that feel the first time that you experienced that?
Yeah, it definitely was very validating, and it was really cool to see. And I think also that is kind of a moment where it like solidified, because some people I think want to write but also want like a lot more control and want to like also direct or also act in the thing. And it kind of solidified for me that it actually is very fun and interesting for me to write something and see someone else just like fully interpret it in their own way. And like it was really gratifying and satisfying. So yeah, it was definitely very validating. And it really was like, oh cool, there's like something here. It's like not just a thing that stuff I find funny. It's like other people are finding this funny too. And yeah, it was really exciting to kind of see that.
Did you study film, TV in school, like in college, or like where did you go? How did you start like moving toward this as a career?
Yeah, so I started at Colorado State, and I was doing like communication and political science, but my goal was always to try to get to film school at some point. And then I transferred to Chapman University down in Orange, and I studied screenwriting there.
Okay. So yeah, you did the traditional thing. I knew I wanted to do film and TV, but I studied communications, broadcast journalism, and just kept studying that and didn't leave. So it's good that you knew it and pursued it and chased it, like, and you knew at that point. I definitely felt like, I guess this is my backup plan, but then I was like, well, what if I try to do this as just my plan? Writing is hard. Like moving to LA is hard. What if I just try to work in news? And I did, and it hated it. And so I feel like I started here a little bit later than I could have if I had like really known and took that risk early. It's cool that you just went for that. That's great.
Yeah. I mean, and it was like also a whole even more with that process where it was like I had applied to Chapman when out of high school. I applied to 3 schools. I applied to Chapman, Colorado State, and University of Colorado at Boulder. And my plan at that point in time was to go to CU Boulder because they had like a film program. And I was just telling everyone like, oh, I'm going to CU Boulder next year. And then what happened was I got into Chapman, which was a surprise. I kind of did that on like a what if I sent an application here to see what would happen. Got into Chapman, got into Colorado State, and then was waitlisted at CU Boulder. And so it was like I had to like totally readjust kind of how I envisioned my college career, and thought maybe I could swing Chapman, but it's a very expensive private school, so could not swing going to Chapman. So did Colorado State. After a year, applied to transfer, got into Chapman again, but then did not receive any financial aid or anything. Still couldn't swing it. And then the next year applied again, got in, and then that year they threw me a bone, gave me a scholarship, and so I was able to go. So it was like 3 years in a row of doing college applications. It was kind of a lot.
That sounds like a lot.
Yeah.
So then you end up in LA. How did you end up at UCB? What drew you to that? And like, you know, obviously you're writing TV, you're studying screenwriting. You know, UCB is improv and sketch, just which, you know, helps and contributes and helps you as a writer, but completely different kind of writing and
Mhm.
performance. Like what made you think I'm gonna give UCB a try?
Yeah, while at Chapman, I started doing improv, and I had never
Mhm.
done improv before, but I, knew I liked comedy. I knew some people who were on the improv team, so I decided to give it a shot, and really, really liked that there. Really enjoyed it a lot, and like was helping like run the team by the end of my time there. And then also like happening parallel, I took at Chapman, they had like a summer class, which is like a sketch writing class. And it was
Okay.
really cool because it was so Ann Beats taught this class, who was like an original SNL writer.
Oh wow.
And it was like twice a week. And on Tuesday, you met and you brought in sketches and read them. And then on Thursday, you like all went up to LA and went to see some kind of comedy show. And so
Oh
sometimes
cool.
it was like a stand-up show, and sometimes it was a Conan taping, and then it was a show. We saw a show at UCB, and it was my first time ever at UCB,
Mhm.
and it was like a sketch show, and that was really cool for me to see and everything. So I think those kind of I had UCB was on like a high pedestal for me.
Mhm.
So then after I graduated, I decided to try to get in the mix and take an improv class and continue. Like definitely wanted to keep doing improv after college.
Mhm. How did your parents feel about pursuing this kind of, you know, this is a tough job and it's a tough life. You know, once you're in, great to a degree, but it's really hard to break into. Where was there, you know, sort of discussion of like maybe you should do something more practical, or have they been supportive?
They've always been supportive. There was never a sense of like maybe you should do a different thing. There
Hmm.
has been some like, you know, oh, it seems like really hard, like acknowledgement of that. And like,
Yeah,
and sometimes my mom would be like, so you're probably like never moving back home, or maybe
I get
you
that.
are.
Yeah, I still
Yeah,
get
it's
that.
like
Yeah.
the thought of like maybe something will happen. But they've always been really supportive. And I think especially the year where I did end up going, because I'm also one of three kids. I'm the youngest, and I was also the first one to move out of the state. So my other
Hmm.
siblings are still around in Colorado. And so I think moving away was also like a very big deal for my parents
Hmm.
too. But I think I just remember along that once I got in and got a scholarship, they were like very supportive and were like, we know that. So at some point, it like clicked for them completely of like, if he really wants to do this, like you have to be out there doing it.
Yeah.
So like as much as they would like me to be in Colorado, it's like they know I have to be out there doing it. So I
Hmm.
think that they've been really supportive, which has always been really nice. I've never felt like pressure to pursue something different.
That's nice. That's yeah. So now let's get into. I want to start getting into the professional track because you know
Hmm.
the people who listen to the show, I think, are often are often curious about like how different people get started, and the truth is like, it's different for every writer, every person just has a different journey. So your first job, if my research is correct, was as a researcher on the Pete Holmes show, on his late night show.
Yeah.
Um,
So yeah, and actually immediate, very short lived right before that was so I had interned at Conan when I was in college, which was
okay.
amazing. Conan was like big hero to me. So that was a
Icon.
really
I love him so much.
yes, huge. So that was a great internship. And then as I was graduating, like at the exact same time, basically, the Conan was like producing this clip show called Dion Cole's Black Box. And
Mhm.
so the clips people from that show were like working on Dion Cole's Black Box. And so they needed like a temporary like 2 to 3 month gig for someone to work as like a clips PA. And
Mhm.
so they reached out to me because I kind of stayed in touch with them. And so like the week after finals, I like started doing that. And so that was like
Wow.
a 2 to 3 month thing. That was really cool. I just like worked in the post department and helped find clips of stuff.
Mhm.
And then I knew that they were getting ready to launch the Pete Holmes show because they were Conan people are producing it.
Right.
And so I really like bugged everyone to try to get in the mix on that. And so yeah, I started initially actually also doing like clips and it was stuff that I did not know how to do, but I was able to like kind of learn how to do it. I was like finding photos to use in things and finding clips and clearing clips. It was like stuff that was above my head, but I was doing that, and then it shifted like between like seasons of the show, and then I moved on to doing like guest research, and I was assisting like the segment producer and stuff. So yeah, that was my kind of first like real like gig out of college. Yeah.
Did that experience, so from there, your next job starting at Brooklyn Nine-Nine as a PA? Was that after Pete Holmes?
Yeah.
So you have kind of a traditional track like that. I want to get into this further, but that almost doesn't exist anymore, hardly, of starting as a PA, moving up to like writer's PA, writer's assistant, staff writer, which is traditionally how this industry has worked in a lot of ways. And it seems like that kind of track is disappearing, which I do want to talk about further. But so talk about, if you don't mind, like how you started there, and then it sounds like, at least with your experience with Pete Holmes too, you're willing to and able to advocate for yourself and say, this is what I want. This is the direction I want my career to move in. So was that what you were doing at Brooklyn Nine-Nine as well? Like, I would like to work up to this. And I just love to hear more about that process. I have never been in a writer's room like that. So I would love to hear more about it.
Yeah, for sure. So so like Pete Holmes got canceled, which was a bummer. And I knew I was kind of interested. I really liked late night and sketch stuff, but I knew I was interested in kind of like jumping over to narrative in some way. And so the move, it's one of those like how I ended up over there was one of those like stupid Hollywood stories of like just lucky happenstance. Where it was
I love stupid Hollywood stories. Let's go.
I was talking to my roommate who was a friend of mine from college, and I said, I'd really love to like switch over to narrative. I'd love to work on a show like Parks and Rec, or maybe even Brooklyn Nine-Nine, which has been on for one season at this point. And he was like, oh, I think my coworker's roommate is the production coordinator at Brooklyn Nine-Nine. And I said, oh, okay. And he said, want me to pass your resume over? And I said, I guess it couldn't hurt.
Yeah.
And then they reached out and said, we're hiring office PAs right now. Do you want to come in? And so then I got hired as an office PA. So for season 2.
Okay.
So that was really like, again, like right, lucky people know each other in right place, right time. Started as an office PA for season 2, was doing a lot of, I was getting groceries. I was running around on a golf cart around the lot, handing out call sheets and stuff. But yeah, I think I made it clear even in my interview that I eventually, I'm a person I consider myself to be a writer, and I would like to, that's my goal, but I want to like learn all about how a show works. I want to learn how all the departments, and I'm glad I did too. I think it was actually really fun to interact with every department on the show. And then season 2 going into season 3, there was some movement and some people had left, and so everyone kind of got bumped up, and so I got bumped up to being a writer's PA, and so I was doing similar things but just for the writer's office. So that was really fun, and just being in that building was exciting and meeting all the writers. Then similarly, there was some little more movement, some people moving on and things, and so then I was a writer's assistant for season 4, and then there, I'm in the room where it happens and taking notes and getting involved in all of that, and so that was really, really exciting. And then there was less movement for a time, and so I was a writer's assistant for 3 seasons.
Okay.
But the great thing about this time, not the current time, but that time,
right,
is that we had 22 episode seasons. And so because of that, they would always give like the writer's assistant or the script coordinator like an episode to write. And so my second season as a writer's assistant, I got to write an episode of the show, and that was really great. And they were really also, they could have easily been like, we'll put your name on this episode and call it a day. But it was really like, they wanted me to have the experience of writing the episode. So I like was in the room when we were breaking it, and I went off and wrote the outline and got some notes and read a draft on the outline, then went off to be on script for 5 days and came back and was involved in the rewrite process and was able to be on set for it. So it was really like the full experience. So that was great. I really had a really positive experience with that episode. And then writer's assistant for another year. And then I got to write another episode that year, which was also really exciting. And then there was a little more movement. And then finally, I got bumped up to script coordinator. And so similar to writer's assistant, sending out a lot of drafts, doing a lot of weird like clearance stuff and paperwork stuff, but it was fun. And then wrote another episode. So at this point, I have written 3 episodes of the show,
Right.
and I'm like, I've been gotten a lot of great feedback and everything. And then finally, come season 8, I get the call that they want to bump me up to staff writer. At the time, we didn't know it was the final season. We hadn't decided it was the final season. Also, at the time I got the call, it was going to be, we didn't know it was going to be a Zoom thing. It was
Right.
the call pre-pandemic. Room started during the pandemic.
Mm.
But yeah, so that was it. I was on the show for 7 seasons. It was a long, and that's the thing. Like you mentioned, shows don't last 7 seasons, 8 seasons now, and so it's
or
hard
have
to
22 episodes,
or 22 episodes, because we had a big room too. We had like 14 writers in the room, and so it was, I mean, it was a really supportive room for me when I was in those roles, who were excited to like have me pitch ideas and would ask me questions, and whenever there'd be like an assignment, hey everyone, like think of 20 Terry pitches, like I'd be expected to like also do that. And so it was a nice environment to like learn a lot in. But yeah, it's weird. And also it was, the other great thing is that 22 episode season, it was a long, like we started in May, I mean, work until March, and then we'd have 2 months off, and then we'd know that we were coming back the next May. It was like the perfect schedule.
Yeah.
Now like writers' rooms are like 2 months long, and then you never know what's going to happen.
And now it's 10 episode seasons, 4 or 5 writers maybe. Jumping in. Some shows are just like stick with like 1 or 2, I'll just do them all there, which is fine if you're whatever, that's a different kind of creative thing. But these kind of shows just don't exist as much, and there's almost no room to grow in the way that you were able to grow. And even I haven't fully put together this question yet, because I was just reading a Twitter thread about it, so I apologize if I'm a little scattered on it. But it was a writer talking about just how hard it is to staff right now, how hard it is to get reps right now as a TV writer, because it's so hard to staff right now. So how are you feeling just in general about sort of, I guess, the state of being a TV writer right now? Because are you hopeful? Are you optimistic? Or are you as depressed as a lot of us are?
Yeah, I'm feeling, it does feel hard to be optimistic. I feel like, yeah, there's a sense, I will say, I don't know whether it's not optimistic, but there's a sense of feeling like, oh, okay, this is happening to everyone. Because sometimes you feel like it's just you, and you're like, why am I having such a hard time getting a rep or getting in a room or getting a meeting? But then it's like, oh, you hear from so many people like on Twitter and stuff, and you're like, oh, okay, this is like kind of like an industry wide thing. And it's really tough because like I don't necessarily know what you hear people say this stuff comes in waves. You hear people who've been around a long time say ebbs and flows, it comes in waves, it's here now and it'll come here. So I just have to kind of, I guess, trust in that. But there's not like, even with like maybe a WGA strike, there's not like, I don't necessarily know what the things that will change that would then like change the state of it, how it is for a lower level TV writer. I'm not sure what it looks like besides shows having longer seasons and bigger rooms and stuff, which I don't know if that's
something that, I don't know. I'm definitely excited to hear more about just the negotiations and what they're coming after, because there are a lot of issues to address, and just it just feels like a tough time right now all around. And it is kind of, I had hung out with a couple writers last night outside, because I'm on brand, I don't go inside with people anymore. It was a lot of discussion about just how tough it is in general. Like Phil, like I think my reps would be okay with me saying this. We'll find out if they listen. But I talked to them about like, should I be working on something like a pilot sample? Because I've mostly worked in features at this point. And they were like, eventually maybe, but TV is just so tough right now that the way that you might get in is writing off of the heat of a feature sale or a feature getting made. It's like, just because there's no clear pathway in for somebody who is newer to television, or, you know, has only been, you know, staffed once or twice, or the lower level, mid-level. Like, it just feels like it's disappearing. And I don't know how those things are going to be addressed, but I know that's got to be on their docket to at least talk about.
Yeah, no, I think so. And I mean, it's interesting because even where I'm at, I'm even like starting to work on more features and stuff, because I am like, well, I have several pilots I'm really happy with, and I don't have a ton of feature stuff. And I'm like, well, I might as well, in this time when everyone's kind of spinning their wheels, like seeing what's going to happen, like get, you know, widen the net, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the only thing we can do right now. That's the only thing we can control is our output. And like, we can't control how the industry receives it or what opportunities are going to come to us. But I think being ready and having those, you know, preparation is luck is preparation meets opportunity kind of thing. So like, sure, I've got a feature, sure, I've got a pilot, like, just be ready for whatever they can come to you with. I want to move on to something a little happier, because I think this is a depressing this is sort of a depressing topic. But one of your episodes of Brooklyn Nine-Nine has one of the most iconic cold opens of the entire series. It's the Backstreet Boys police lineup cold open. Congratulations, just for that's your baby, that's from your script. That's, I'm sure it was collaborative to some degree, I'm sure, as a writer, but it's still like, that's your credit to you, because it's your episode and such a funny moment. How did that moment come together?
Yeah, it was definitely like, finding it was super collaborative. It was like, I think I had written my episode that was actually my first episode, so it was really another crazy thing.
You came out of the gate swinging.
No, well, I had written my first episode without a cold open,
right?
Just the plot of the episode, and then it was just like kind of the room itself. Like, we were all pitching on it, coming up with it, and then we found this. We really, really liked it. It went really well on the table read. They tried to convince us that they're there. Like we got an email right away that was like, we sent the script out, and that was like, really funny cold open, like, it's gonna be too expensive though, so we can't do it. And then but we all kind of felt it was like, we need to do this cold open, so I really pushed for it. We were like, we can find the budget for it. They tried to get us one really funny thing, and this is actually like tied into what has like a callback joke in the very last episode of the show. But there's like certain songs that Universal owns that are free, and they were like, what if you did that cold open with the song Car Wash instead? And we were like, they're like, because that's free, so that would be great if you could do it with Car Wash. And so we're like, we can't do that. And then they added a joke in the finale of the whole show where it's like, Jake is starting to get criminals to do it again, and he does Car Wash and stuff. But yeah, and so pushed really hard for it. Was really happy with it. I was like always a huge Backstreet Boys fan, so I was always like so into it. And it was really fun also on set too, because on set I feel like, I don't know, you never like know how something's going to turn out, but I kind of always, from even when we came up with it, we did it at a table read, I was like, I think this is going to be like a really big cold open. Like, I think people are going to really like this cold open. And like seeing it play out on set, and like and then like we had the song playing like a lot that day, like people were like listening to it like to try to like get the words down. And then by the end of the week, someone was like playing the song, and everyone was like, oh my god, we've heard that song so much this week, like can we listen to a different song please? But yeah, and so then I felt really good about it. I felt really happy, one, that it was, part of my episode, that I had been involved in the process of, helping come up with it. And then when it like, they dropped that clip like the day before the episode came out, and they were like, oh, here's a fun cold open, and I shared it, and it just got like a lot of response. And so that was really like validating the way that I felt like, when you think, you're like, I think this is gonna hit hard, and then it does. And so it was really great. And yeah, I feel really lucky to have my name on it and have contributed to it, even though it was, again, very collaborative group effort.
Full credit to you,
okay,
Jeff.
okay.
We have about 5 minutes left. I don't want to like miss. There's so much more I want to talk about. These episodes always go too fast, but that's part of the fun of the show, I guess.
Yeah.
I want to take some time to talk about you're teaching pilot writing at UCB now, which is very exciting, very cool. What drew you to like want to aside from we writers need a million different jobs to stay alive right now. What drew you to teaching, and like what do you find like rewarding about it, and how can people find this class who want to maybe learn more about pilot writing? And
well, I had initially reached out to UCB about potentially teaching a sketch class, and it was kind of like in that time in the pandemic where I was just like, wonder what else I can do right now, because I'm whatever. And they were like, well, actually no one's really taking the sketch classes right now because there's not mod night, there's nothing like that's happening right now, but a lot of people are taking pilot writing because everyone wants to come out of the pandemic with a pilot. And so they were like, would you be willing to teach that? And I thought about it for a while, and I was like, I mean, I've written my fair share of pilots, and I've been in a writer's room. So I was like, sure, I'll like give it a shot. And it's cool because it's very unlike the other classes that are like, here's UCB's curriculum. This is like very much like the teacher, like I came up with the curriculum from my class,
cool. Yeah.
And so I came up with the schedule and stuff I wanted to teach and everything. And yeah, I like really, really like it a lot. I feel like it's been really fun for me to keep working on like pitching and working on like I feel like I read so many outlines and help try to fix story problems, which is exactly what you're doing like in a writer's room. So it's really like keeping those muscles alive. But then it's also just really satisfying to see like in the course of an 8-week class, like the kernel of an idea that someone was a little unsure about then become like a really great draft by the end of it, and be able to help with that. And I have people who like take the class a second time because they want to write a second pilot, which has been really fun. But
cool.
Yeah, I've been really liking it, and I've kind of found I didn't never realize, but I do like really enjoy like teaching in general. I think that's really like teaching, and kind of like I'm also like directing a mod team, like teaching and directing and coaching and like mentoring is a thing that I just like seem to always find myself, whether like I mean to or not, like gravitating towards.
It seems like that's just something inside you. You went from like, I'm going to do improv a little bit at Chapman, see what this feels like, to like, I'm leading this team now. You end up in these roles of leadership. Maybe you're, somewhere deep inside you, you're just a natural leader.
It's so funny because I always think of myself as like not. I always think of myself as a person who's like likes to be around leadership, but never wants to be like the one who's making the decision. But then I find myself like directing a team, teaching a class, like doing this, doing that. And I'm always like, oh yeah, maybe I like secretly do just really enjoy, because I do really enjoy like helping. I find myself also like really liking to like meet upcoming writers and like give advice and talk about things I've done. I like always just like enjoy trying to like help people like do the thing that I'm doing, and I think it's great.
I think that's great. I think that's important. I think a lot of us wouldn't be here unless there were people who did that for us. So like it's nice to be able to do that for people, and it's nice that you enjoy that, because I do think that's kind of a pay it forward thing that I think we should all be doing once we are starting to have a little bit of success.
Yeah.
We have less than 2 minutes now, so I want to take this time right here to give you the opportunity. Where can people follow you? Where can people find your class? Is there anything else that you want to plug, et cetera, et cetera?
Great. So let's see. You can follow me on Twitter. I post a lot of dumb stuff on Twitter. It's like my handle's my name, Jeff Topolski. I post some stuff on Instagram. You can follow me there too if you want. Follow me on Twitter, maybe instead of, well, whatever you want to do. It's up to you. Do you want to see me or do you want to read me? It's whatever. This class, I feel like you can go, classes are always up on the UCB website, and I try to teach.
And they're all online at this point, right?
Yes.
So anybody anywhere can sign up for these.
Yes, anywhere. I have people from all over the country in the class, which is really cool. I am just started 2 classes, which means I'll be finishing them in 8 weeks from now. So like in like end of March, and then I'll probably start 2 new ones because I like to always be doing it. So there'll probably be some classes in end of March and April. I'm also directing a mod team, which is great. They're called Love Seat, and they have a show. They have a show on February 15th and a show on March. Oh gosh, whatever the second or third Wednesday. You can check the UCB calendar. They're great. I'm directing that team, and they're all full of all-stars. That's all where you can find me. I think I don't know where else you can find me. Walking around, I don't know. Walking outside with my dog. I'm around there. Yeah.
All right. We have less than a minute. I don't know how much longer, but I want to take this time to get to know you even better. Jeff, is there a God?
Oh my gosh, is this, if I keep talking, if I like stall, will this run out so I don't have to answer this question?
Your meeting has ended. Goodbye.
Thank you for listening to 39-Minute Conversations, hosted and produced by Brian T. Arnold. Music by Kevin MacLeod, licensed under Creative Commons by Attribution 4.0 license. If you like what you heard, please subscribe and tune in for new episodes, and don't forget to rate and review. If you didn't like what you heard, please don't do any of that. That's okay too. Thank you, and we'll see you next time. Stay safe and be well.